Brothers and sisters, we are blessed in countless ways. We seek the protection and favor and guardianship of our Creator, Provider, and Sustainer, who has, for every moment of our existence, blessed us and favored us and given us all of the means for us to flourish, to thrive, for us to succeed, for us to attain His contentment. It is in that we praise Him, an abundant praise, praise that fills the heavens and the earth and everything in between. This is a responsibility. This is the source of faith as a living reality in our lives, is that we are thankful for being given life, and we know that the source of our life is who we are servants to. And there is no other purpose and meaning in life for us. At some point in time, everybody asks that question. What is the purpose of life? Why are they asking that question? Mostly they get to a point in age where they're like, well, where did everything come from? Why am I unique? Why is this human thought much different than any other being that we know of? So they're thinking in a philosophical or religious thought. But we should start by affirming that life does have meaning, very beautiful, structured meaning. And that's when we look at the actual physical realm of life. For the believer to study biology, to study zoology and geology and how things are in the air and in the land and in the water and why they are the way they are, this is a faith-increasing exercise. It's something amazing and profound to see how life is all symbiotically working together in a very purposeful manner. So there's no question that life has purpose. And this is probably one of the main reasons why God, time and time again, throughout the Quran, weaves in to the guidance of moral behavior for us to look at creation and how things are in creation and how the clouds form and how the rain comes down and how the earth comes up and the need for a pure land and a pure society. Looking at how the life forms in the world interact with each other and how we interact with them and how we need them to survive and they need us to survive. فانظر إلى آثار رحمة الله كيف يحيي الأرض بعد موتها. Look at how the effects of God's mercy, His benevolence, His compassion, that He gives life to the dead earth. Right now, we're all driving around forgetting that less than a few weeks ago, we were driving around and all of the trees looked like dead skeletons. And now here they are, and this change in feeling, this vibe of life in front of you, coming back right in front of your eyes. And so he talks about purpose and meaning in the same context of showing us those things. He also talks about the resurrection and accountability for life in seeing that we watch this resurrection yearly throughout the seasons. And so he talks about that as His rahmah, His compassion, His mercy, His benevolence. And so it is our responsibility to represent His rahmah by using our agency, our intellectual capacity, our emotion to look after the best interests to preserve life on earth. And that's our story. The story of Adam and Eve is our story. In the very beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, after Allah clarifies the three categories of human beings when it comes to how they relate to reality. The first category are the pious, those who seek faith, those who seek the truth and to live by the purpose the Creator has given them. Then He goes into rejection and disbelief, those who don't want to believe. They're not searching for the truth. They are rejecting. They're finding every reason not to see the truth and the purpose of life beyond their physical realm. And then He goes into a long dissertation about hypocrisy and those who are struggling with faith and disbelief and doubts and desires and worldly status. So then He talks about the nature of existence and how you and everyone that came before you and all of the earth around you is His blessing. And so He tells us the story of our ancestors, Adam and Eve. We learn two key points from the story of Adam and Eve. The first is that human beings as a collective are the caliph, the khalifa. What is the caliph? It is the responsible authority, divinely appointed to be the responsible authority. Unfortunately, some people depict this as we're on top of the food chain. That's one way of looking at it, but it's much more complex than that, as you see, as we sit in this room with the air conditioning on, and I'm looking at notes on a computer while the lights are on. There is no other being that has this capacity or this ability. But the question is, what will we do with this ability? Will we come up with technologies that preserve life and save life, or will we build atomic bombs? That is the test of life. Because the second point, after being told that you're the caliph, the angels were like, yeah, but this type of being will cause all kinds of bloodshed and corruption in the world. And then Allah tells them, I know what you don't know. Then He shows what makes us distinguished. Is that Adam, meaning the human being, all of us collectively, have a creative capacity for knowledge and expressing ideas. We can look at things and think about them and say, that's what that is. This is what it's about. This is what makes us unique and different from any other creation. There is no being that philosophizes and then comes up with phonetic sounds to mean very complex ideas. Allamahul bayan. After He talked about Him being the merciful God, and then He is the one who taught us our purpose through the Quran, that He created us with this special, unique capacity to intellectualize purpose and meaning and to express it. So the angels are not capable of that. We are superior to angels in that. And so that is how we are tested in life. So when we look at this, we see that our access and capacity for knowledge, our access to and capacity for knowledge makes us the responsible being on the earth. Mafhumul mukhalafa, the opposite is true. Ignorance will lead us to be irresponsible. Ignorance is what causes, human ignorance is the most destructive thing on planet Earth. And that when we say ignorance, a lot of people are thinking now, okay, do I know how to do multiplication and division? Or do I know the factoids of history books? Or can I read a text? That's a very simple understanding. It's a very industrial understanding. No, it means, do you choose to use your mind as a soul who wants to get closer to God, the source of knowledge and wisdom, through understanding His message and understanding the creation and how His message applies and our responsibility in that, so that we may achieve true success? That's what we're talking about. And so when we're talking about ignorance, it is how much do you study the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? Then how much do you study what's going on around you in the world? Ergo, physics, biology, economy, health, nutrition, environment, marine life, right? All of those things. Psychology, sociology, history. And do you compare different analyses, or do you read one and say, this one guy's book I should just take as the golden truth? There's only one book you can do that with, and that is the Lord of the Universe's book. After that are a whole bunch of people with different ideas and abilities and knowledge and clarity and correctness versus complete confusion, or that they have been manipulated to say things or even paid to say things that looks authoritative because it's a book, right? It's taught in school, right? It must be real. No, we don't take it like that. So our knowledge should move us to preserve and promote life. Our scholars have identified there are 5 fundamental objectives to the divine law. The reason the Quran and the Sunnah were revealed were to preserve human life, were to preserve faith and the promotion of monotheism, to preserve the family and the needs of the family, to preserve wealth and the just exchange of it, and to preserve the intellect and the capacity of using your mind for the best interests of yourself, your family, and the world around you. Those are the 5 objectives of Islamic law. Those were identified well over 1,000 years ago, and all scholars have been operating as such. Many of them put the first one and most important is preserving life. And when we talk about that, the scholars, they said that Islamic law is here to teach us the importance of purity. The more pure you are as a body, the healthier you will be. The more pure you are as a heart and a soul, the more healthy your morals and character will be. And so that's why when you go to any book of Islamic law, jurisprudence, the first chapter is tahara, purity. And it's about a metaphor of relating physical purity to spiritual purity. So the cleanliness and the purification of water is the first thing you learn in Islamic law, Sharia, fiqh. And that is how we understand the Prophet ﷺ statement that at-tahara nisfud Deen, that purification is half of your religion. So here are some important facts to consider as Earth Day will come up next Tuesday, the 22nd. Our water is infused with massive pollution every day. This comes from leaked coal, oil, and natural gas deposits because they're adamant about making as much money out of that stuff that they can. Chemical wastes from factories and from fertilizers and pesticides of agriculture and mass agriculture. And then just the process of mining and drilling, releasing things that are part of the natural earth, but those aren't good to be in your water. So the Mississippi River carries 1.5 million metric tons of nitrogen pollution into the Gulf of Mexico every year, creating a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico the size of New Jersey every year. Meaning, all of this agriculture and all of this waste and all of what is going on from the fertilizers that they are using so that they can make mass production because people can't grow their own local crops in a normal, natural way, that the way God intended. And so much is wasted. 70% is wasted. It's destroying the Mississippi River and the Gulf of Mexico. Here's another fact. Approximately 40% of America's lakes and rivers are too polluted for fishing or swimming. These are coming from scientific organizations that went across the country, taking the samples from many places and assessing this in order to come up with these numbers. People are saying nowadays, well, what's this deal with all the cancer? And what's this deal with all the autism? And what's the deal? And what's the deal? And what's the deal? We're going to get to that. Industries dump an estimated 400 million tons of polluted wastewater in waters across the world every year. 400 million tons from factories of polluted water and wastewater. Our waste is just getting dumped into the waterways all over the world. Every year, more people die from unsafe water than from all forms of violence, including wars. This is all over the world. Millions and millions of people die every year because of water they drank or swam in. So the Environmental Working Group has analyzed all water in the country, and they analyzed Charlotte water. And they found 19 cancer-causing chemicals in the water that comes out of the tap here. So if you're drinking from a water fountain, and many of them just because it's a few $100s cheaper, they don't put a filter. Actually, unfortunately, we put our filter in back in the year 2021 because I asked this question when I gave a similar sermon back then. We found out that we bought water fountains that are giving us all these chemicals. So there are 19 different cancer-causing agents with alarming amounts in the tap water. Now you're saying, what do we do now? Well, if you study water filtration, the best form is called reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis purifies 95% of all of the stuff that's in there. And when we say that, it moves it down to very, very, very minuscule levels that the human being could naturally process, probably without getting cancer. After that is the most common, which you find in your refrigerators, which is called activated carbon. The one you put in your refrigerator, the one that we've put here, that's activated carbon. That is about 77% of all of the stuff that's in there is getting removed. Some of it 100%, other things a little bit less percent. So I just want to highlight that we just talked a few facts about the water in this country and even worse in the rest of the world. We didn't even begin to talk about the trash dumps and how recycling is a big sham. Not even 10% of what you put in recycle gets recycled. It's just a way to make you feel better. The propaganda we all live under is profound. You have to study something called authority bias. We are all raised up in these industrial schools to believe they know. Those are the authorities. They have our best interests in mind. We didn't talk about air pollution. We didn't talk about the depleting ozone layer. And these are all very well-established scientific facts. And the only place you would find a scientist challenging them is a scientist who was paid by these corporations to be their personal regulator scientist and put out some official-looking scientific stuff to say that's not the case so they can still make billions of dollars with all their corruption. So it's important for us to really reflect what's going on around us and use our minds and use our connective, moral, social bonds to do what's best for ourselves and our children's generation. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فإنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Please scoot forward. Some people are trying to find their way in. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. What we have all learned over the last year and a half plus in Palestine, it's not just Palestine. This is the key point I want you to leave here with today. If you were thinking that the United States government just has a moral breakdown and shows and proves itself to be a total, full-blown hypocrisy in its propaganda mission to convince everybody it is the great promoter of human rights and human welfare and is against all forms of terror and taking of life and innocent life and all of that stuff. If you think it's just Palestine, this is the time to start studying things. It's the whole entire government. Just yesterday, I watched on Twitter a guy come in front of a political rally in which now Republicans are all turning on Donald Trump in mass numbers all over the country for various reasons. And he listed all of these crimes and all of these things, and he said how many people did these crimes and that crime and this thing and this corruption and all of this behavior and what they were accused of and how many domestic violences and all that. He said, are these people who are NBA or NFL? And then the majority said NFL. And some said NBA. He said, no, actually, I'm giving you a list of corruption, lawsuits, and crimes committed by the United States Congress, 435 of them. It is a system called capitalism at the root of this. Capitalism teaches that this is a system of economics, but it has become a system of politics. Because if you want to make the most money, you need the government to support your means to making that money. And so how do you do it? You formulate a relationship called lobbying in which you pay large amounts of money. considering that 96% of the people who win a congressional election in the Senate or House, 96% of the winners of those elections are the ones who spent more money. Not the ones who have proven more moral or character or have a better plan. None of that has anything to do with anything for the most part. It's who spent more money. So these lobbyists, not just AIPAC and Israel, the Exxon and oil and gas and coal and all of these fertilizer companies and big food and industries, they're spending millions and millions and millions of dollars as well. And they're all getting what they want. And the fundamental point of capitalism is profits are the most important goal of success, which means humans and their welfare are not important if it means lowering your profits. And that's not even just my interpretation. That's actually written in the books. It's a free society. It's called neoliberalism. It's a connected idea. I got mine, Jack. You do what you do. If you don't want to buy my stuff, don't buy it. The market will decide. If you find that my stuff's polluted, I can remember vividly when I found out about nitrates in meats for the halal people of the book crowd here. I was finding we were making a big deal looking for that in the year 2010, 2011. Couldn't find it. But the more social media moved, now you find all of them. They removed nitrates because they found out it's creating colon cancer. But that was mainstream in every single meat all the way back to the 1980s and 70s or 80s when Ronald Reagan. So Ronald Reagan was the beginning of the end for human race because he deregulated. And nobody has undone this. He deregulated all banks and corporations and all this stuff. And they stopped doing any reviews upon new problems. And people started paying the FDA, the Food and Drug Association, the EPA, the Environmental Protection. People are getting paid to say certain things. So capitalism is destroying the planet as we live in what we call a corporatocracy. This is not a democracy. It is not a republic. It's a corporatocracy. Some refer to it as an oligarchy, but usually oligarchy is like a handful of rich fat cats. A corporatocracy means the corporations as a shares, stock market. You know, when they talk about the economy, they're not talking about you and I's wealth. They're talking about the stock market, of which we own, the average person, 90% of the society owns less than 5% of the stock market. Okay? It means nothing. Like every president, they talk about this president was in, Obama was in, and then the economy was this, and you're like, but things keep getting more expensive for me. The interest rates got worse and all this and that and the other for me. What are you talking about? It means that their profits for those billionaire corporations and multimillionaire corporations were doing better. That's what they mean. But yet you have people in trailer parks talking about when Trump was there last time, we had way better economy. And I'm like, but you're still in the trailer park, dude. Like, what are you talking about? But he's been propagandized and brainwashed to believe this thought process. He's been programmed like a matrix. It's like you're stuck. This is what you're doing. So my advice to everybody here is to learn what's going on, to study it, to understand how things happen in our environment, in Charlotte, North Carolina. What's happening with our water? What's happening with our waste? What's happening with Duke Energy? Is Duke Energy a savior that can go talk to our kids about how they've got green energy? That's all propaganda. They should not be allowed in there. They're terrorists. Duke Energy has caused the destruction of multiple life systems and probably led to the cancer of multiple people. And then they raised our electric bill to pay for their mistakes in the massive coal deposits. Some hundreds of millions of tons went into the water systems and ruined many waterways all over the state. But because they pay for all of our state people's lobbying for them to get elected, they keep getting everything they want. And the one thing that's in the way is ignorance. What's in the way of solving this is mass ignorance and propaganda. So we have to learn, number one. Number two, we have to think about what are we doing? We should all be collectively working to make our own vegetables and fruits and herbs in our own backyards and gardens and at our mosque and at our schools and encouraging this. This will solve a lot of problems for us. And it will be much cheaper. It will take some work. You get your hands dirty. We should be purifying our water with reverse osmosis. We have to look into this. You know, some people thought that we were just crazy lunatics whenever we said no plastic bottles. We've saved probably well over 20,000 plastic bottles to be just thrown in landfills, which will go into over the last 3 Ramadans in which we have not had any plastic bottles. But some people keep bringing them thinking they're solving a problem. And I get it. It's a good intention. You feel like people are thirsty. They've been fasting all day. But do you know that many of those water bottles, when they're sitting out in the truck in the hot sun, that plastic melts and gets in there and becomes microplastics. And it leads to all kinds of physiological and metabolic syndromes in human people. So what I'm saying will sound like conspiracy theories because you don't know. But when you study it, you'll be like, this is very well-established facts. They want us to be ignorant. They don't want us to be caliphs, to be khulafa, to be the responsible people of the earth. So we fight back first with knowledge, and then we make our own action to repair and reform our environments, and then we work with others to build the healthy momentum towards changing the system of governance that we have authority over in city and county and state government. Ya Allah, we ask you to reform our hearts and minds. We ask you to enlighten us, to give us a clarity of moral truth from your message, to give us a mandate of intellectual truth and understanding the world around us, to make us agents of positive change in our lives, in our children's lives, and in our neighbors' lives. Ya Allah, we ask your forgiveness and your mercy. We ask you to strengthen us. We ask you to give us courage and audacity to speak the truth and to stand up against corruption and evil wherever we find it. Ya Allah, we ask your forgiveness and your mercy. We ask you to make us worthy of your eternal contentment, that we may be in your presence in the Jannat al-Firdaus al-A'la. Ameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.